Alright, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a video that I've been wanting to do for about a year and a half now, ever since I listened to Tickets to My Downfall. I've been waiting for that next MJK album. Of course, we now finally have it, and it is called Mainstream Sellout. Again, this is the CD version. Pretty cool, but today I'm actually going to be reviewing the album and kind of giving you my thoughts and opinions on what I think about it. Again, I never reviewed really Tickets to My Downfall, but in summary, I do think it's one of the greatest punk albums I think to ever be released, and I think a lot of people who disagree honestly just haven't heard it and just want to hate on MJK, which is, you know, whatever. It is what it is. And again, I'll probably give it like a 9 out of 10. The only problem I really had with the album was the interludes. I've got a big thing against interludes where I don't really think they're necessarily needed. Maybe on some albums here and there, but on Tickets to My Downfall, the two interludes that were on it just really weren't needed at all. So again, that was probably my only problem with the album, so I pretty much give that a 9 out of 10. But with Mainstream Sellout, I'm kind of be going over with my positives and my negatives, and just kind of giving it to you like that. And we'll be starting off with the positives, and really there is quite a bit of them. Honestly, what I'd probably give this album right now is I'd probably say a 7.5 out of 10. Again, I think that's what kind of a lot of people are giving it. It's definitely not as good as Tickets to My Downfall, but it is still a really solid punk album. And I think, yeah, I've seen some people say it's like an 8. I've, seen some people say it's a 7. I'm just going to go in the middle right now, which is a 7.5. I've listened to the album quite a fair bit, so again, that's kind of what I'm, coming up to at this point. A couple of things to kind of take with the album is, I legitimately think the non-album singles are some of the best songs that MGK has ever released. Some of them include, of course, Born with Horns, God Save Me, and Make Up Sex, and again, they could be later turned into singles or whatever, but currently they're not. They're just, again, songs on the album, and I think they are some of MJK's best songs he's ever released. Especially God Save Me, I think, is a very, very good song. And Born with Horns, dude, that's a lot better than I actually thought it was going to be. So again, that's another thing. The other thing as well is the production. Again, the production on the album is crazy, just like it was with Tickets to My Downfall. Travis Barker is an absolute GOAT. He is an absolute genius, and that man just continues to deliver with pretty much everything he does. Again, the drumming is fantastic. All of the other producers, like Baze, Slim, etc., they all did a really good job as well. And I just think the production on it, in terms of all that type of stuff, was really, really good. Again, I've got a bit of an issue with the production that I'll talk about maybe later in the cons, but that was just a small part of the production I've got an issue with, which I'll get into later again. But for the majority, the production of the album is really, really good. Just like everything about it, to be honest. But yeah, again, that's another thing. The other thing is too, it didn't go crazy with the interludes. Again, as I said at the start of the video, I'm not a fan of interludes. The other one, I think, had like 4 or 5 minutes or something like that of interludes, which is just honestly annoying. Like, especially when you're putting in a CD in the car or something like that, you're not going to want to listen to interludes at all. But this one, it's got one, and it goes for like 30 seconds, and it really just, I mean, it's not bad. Like, I don't really mind it. It's got Pete Davidson in it again, who seems to be the king of interludes for MGK. It kind of warms up to the Mainstream Sellout title track, which is completely fine. It's just kind of there, and yeah, I don't really know. Like, I mean, interludes aren't that great, but again, this one calmed down on it, and I think it's a good step for MJK. In terms of like the features as well, there's a lot of positives to go on with the features. I think he continued to bring in guys who don't normally do punk music, and kind of added them to this album, and it worked really well. Again, Willow was not known for doing punk until like half a year to a year ago, I believe. She's kind of really transitioned into it now, and MJK, look, I'm not too much of a fan of Emo Girl, but the vocals from Willow is just absolutely insane. And then you've of course got, Bring Me the Horizon, who doesn't necessarily be known for punk, that whole entire band. Like, everything to do with rock. They've got all different types of rock that they kind of, go into. And yeah, I think them exploring more of the punk side of it with MGK was a really, really cool thing as well. And then you got Lil Wayne, who's on 2 tracks. And I don't know if he's ever done a punk song before, but the song Drug Dealer is full punk. And again, Lil Wayne coming on a punk song is really, really insane. And I don't think you would ever see like a rapper like Lil Wayne do that like even 5 years ago. So that's pretty cool to see. So again, those are a lot of my positives. I think there's a couple more, but to kind of keep this a little bit shorter, we won't go into all of them. I do have quite a bit of negatives though that really made it like a 7.5 instead of a 10. First of all, I think the singles, even though the singles are relatively good, I still think they, dropped the score a little bit. Like, Maybe is a really good single, and, it could be considered one of MGK's best ever songs, but Emo Girl, like, the whole entire catchphrase of I fell in love with an emo girl lets that song down. I mean, it's a little bit cringe, but also the rest of the song is pretty good. It's just like, is that a single? And I feel like Drug Dealer was a better song than A. And then Paper Cuts, releasing Paper Cuts so long ago was a weird thing, and then he ended up changing it for the album where he released the album edition, which I'm very thankful for. That's a positive as well, that he actually added the rap part and all that type of stuff. I think that made a lot of sense. But the singles were just a little bit odd. Like, I would have used, if you wanted to do a single with Lil Wayne so bad, I would have, released Drug Dealer instead of A. So I would release that as a single before I did A, to be honest. And then you've got the one with Black Bear, I think could have been a single as well. If, he had his time back and he was to redo the 4 singles, you'd of course take Paper Cuts out, Emo Girl as well, and A, I think you would replace A with Drug Dealer. You'd put the Black Bear one in. You'd keep Maybe featuring Bring Me the Horizon. And I think you go for like a solo performance like Born with Horns or God Save Me as a single. But yeah, the singles were just a little bit odd. Like, I think most people can agree that the singles weren't really picked out, too great. Again, as I said, the whole production in terms of the composing of the album and all that type of stuff was really good. But the one little issue I had with the production was the 2021 production. And what I mean by that is, I feel like there wasn't necessarily a direction at the start with this album, and that's not really too much of a concern because it ended up being pretty good. But it kind of started out as a darker version. He said it was intended to be a darker version. Some people thought he was going to be leaning into grunge type music, especially when he released Paper Cuts. That didn't work. And then when he's done the new version of Paper Cuts, he made it a little bit more punk with the instruments in the background, and then again, added that like rap part that he performed at the VMAs, which was very cool. But yeah, I feel like that part of the production was a little bit messy. But it doesn't really have too much of an effect on the album. I just think that it could have been handled a little bit poorly, and you kind of wonder what happened to those darker songs / grunge themed songs, and where are they? Did they just get thrown on the cutting room floor? Because you would think he's probably got around 7 of them by now, especially considering he thought the album was originally going to come out at the end of 2021. You kind of wonder, well, where did all those songs go? And I wonder if he'll ever release like an EP or something of just all those songs. I really don't know. I'm not exactly too sure. And then, with the Ian Dior, song, I feel like that song might have been a little bit of a letdown, but again, that's just my thought, opinion on it. I thought Nothing Inside and Sick and Tired were much better. And yeah, I think when I heard it, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought they could have done a little bit better, but that's just such a nitpick. Like, it was still a pretty decent song. And you guys might even agree with me. Like, some of you guys might have that song as your favorite, and that's perfectly fine. This is just my opinion. And then we got the, Die in California song, which I feel like that's another one where it's like, MGK really wasn't on it that much. Like, I think he was on it for the first little bit of it, and then you really had Young Thug, Gunna, and Landon Barker, and it really felt to me like that was a Landon Barker song, and that should have been Landon Barker's, like, first ever song he would release under the new, name he would be performing under, which is just his own name. Again, if you check Landon Barker's Spotify, he doesn't have any songs under his new name, new performing name, except this new Die in California song, which was on MJK's album. And it just really feels to me like this was his song. And I don't know if it was intended to be. I'm not exactly too sure, but it doesn't really feel like an MJK song to me. And it might even feel like a little bit misplaced on the album. Like, again, it's acoustic as well. It just, I don't know. It's a little bit different. I think it's an alright song. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't know if this was originally supposed to be like a Landon Barker song, and MGK kind of just said, well, let's just put it on my album, this and that, and we'll get Gunner and, you know, Young Thug on it. Because, yeah, there were leaks about it a little bit ago as well that I think had another MGK and Landon Barker verse on it, and completely didn't even have the Gunner and Young Thug verse. So they really changed up the song. Yeah, so it's a little bit interesting, but again, you can tell, like, my cons are very, like, nitpicky. Like, again, the Landon Barker song seeming like it was his song. You know, the Ian Dior song kind of letting me down. The 2021 production being a little bit messy, and, you know, just kind of that stuff. Like, the album's supposed to be a little bit darker. There's really not a whole lot, and, you know, the singles, again, I think the singles were kind of the one that dropped it in points. Like, if the singles were really good, like, if they were the songs that I suggested, this, you know, album could have been realistically an 8.5 or something like that. But it's just like the lead up to the album, you kind of got very mixed feelings about the singles, and I still wonder if, like, Paper Cut should be on this album technically, and even Emo Girl is just like, well, I don't know. It's very interesting, but of course, I still think it's a very good album. I'm still going to bump this out for a year to two. Wherever he releases the next album, I don't even care. I'm still going to be listening to it. Very good album, but at the time I'm making this, it is 7.5. Just feel like, again, the songs weren't as good as Tickets to My Downfall, singles as well, and again, the other reasons. But of course, I would very much like to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. Did you guys like the album? Did you guys not? Of course, don't forget to make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest kind of just IRL/long content and music content. Don't forget to subscribe to my other channels, my gaming channel, my sports channel, my podcast channel. Links for them will be in the description down below. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.